All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about our Crier Correctional Facility, and it is down on Southton Road in South Bexar County, and it is a 96-bed facility for boys. The mods are set up very much like the kind of the mods in the detention center. They hold 12 kids with a common area in the middle. It used to be co-ed, and a few years ago we decided we needed more capacity for boys, and so we turned it into all-male facility. East Central provides the schooling, the University Health System provides the medical, the Health Science Center provides the psychiatric services, and most of the boys stay there 9 months. And these are really for the more violent and serious offenders that are probably going to be on probation for 18 months to 2 years. You know, they might be a little bit young, but the offense was very serious. Maybe they haven't really been on probation before, but because they're a danger to the community, we're going to put them here before they get released back to their home. And then there's the Mission Road Center, which is the girls' treatment program that is housed inside the detention center. Back, I guess, in 2005, we passed a big bond election to expand our detention center because we were constantly over the maximum of 220, okay? And so we would have kids sleeping on the floor and in the gym, and so we built out capacity for another 48 beds. And by the time they got around to building it, juvenile crime was kind of going down. We didn't need all that capacity, and so we've been able to utilize that new section of the detention center for the weekend program that I spoke about earlier, where the kids come in the 4 consecutive weekends, and also for this girls' special program. All the girls that are in there have mental health problems. They have all suffered traumatic experiences, abuse, neglect, usually some type of sexual exploitation, and many of them have also been victims of human sex trafficking. And they stay there, you know, depends on their behavior, but they stay probably between 4 and 9 months depending on their needs and their age, and it's very intensive. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Restore program later on, but it's a very difficult population of girls. A lot of times they don't have a very high offense, and so you wouldn't be considering sending them to state custody, but they are such high needs. They're engaging in very risky behavior, you know, sex with grown men, running away all the time, heavy drug abuse. And so you really can't, and maybe you have tried them at home and it didn't work out and they keep running away. And so this is kind of the last ditch attempt to get them on track before they might wind up in state custody, or if they're turning 17, do something that might get them put into the Bexar County Jail.
It's just kind of a profile, a snapshot of the juveniles served in 2013. We received about 6,700 referrals, but as you can see, only 4,756 kids. So obviously the kids are committing more than one referral many times. We had, out of those 6,700 referrals, we had about 1,600 kids detained. And the numbers just go down as to what we were talking about. Only 354 went to residential placements that we talked about, such as Crier or some of the non-secure facilities. And we supervised over 3,100 children in 2013. In that, 257 are enrolled in the Juvenile Justice Academy. That's where if you get expelled, you go, or sometimes the schools have to pay for it and sometimes we pay for it. It depends on who has expelled that kid and for what particular reason. There's different juvenile demographics. The red are the males. So you can see most of our population are males, and 71% of our population are Hispanic in Bexar County in 2013. Most of the kids we see are between 15 and 16 years old, closely followed by the 13, 14-year-olds. And that's when they're mostly getting into trouble. We do have some 10 and 12-year-olds. This year I've seen more 10 and 12-year-olds than I have in the past 4 years. And combined, I've seen a lot more 10 and 12-year-olds. And even though I know we said through the age of 16, those 17-year-olds that you see reflected, those are the kids that got into trouble before they were 17. And then they turned 17 sometime before when we put them on probation, they had already turned 17. So that's why that 3% is there. In 2013, out of the 2,093 youths that were told they needed to do community service, they did over 38,000 hours of community service. And so you can see the total value at the top, a lot of environmental cleanup, and if they're a graffiti kid, then they're going to do graffiti cleanup. And so this all makes up for a total of about $280,000 worth of services that we have done. This is one of my favorite slides because everybody in Bexar County, I mean, when we go out to these neighborhood associations, say, the kids are just bad, they're just bad. Well, the purple are the kids that are good. So 97% of our population are good kids. 3%, the little yellow piece, that's the kids that are referred to the Bexar County Juvenile Probation Department. And out of that, less than 0.5% of the juvenile population had a felony referral, which is one of the major referrals. So that slide is very, it's just a good slide. This should be less than 3%, but at least we're going the right way.
Okay, I'm going to kind of just cover some of the trends that we've been noticing over the last few years in juvenile. In this slide, you can see that the red line, those are the kids, and the blue line is the number of crimes. So clearly, kids are committing more than one crime. There was a peak back in 2007, 2008, and at that time I was the administrative judge for the courts, and so I got my support together and went up to Austin, and I got a new court created, and that is the court that Lisa Jarrett is now sitting in. So that's when her court was created, was in the 2009 legislative session. But we had this kind of peak at that time. You know, we did not predict that it would start going down, which is good news, but that's when her court was created. So it has been trending down over the last couple years, kind of flattening out since 2011. On the next slide, these are the types of referrals. So you can see that the misdemeanor offenses are definitely have the most volume. The number one offense is possession of marijuana, okay? We have, over 1,000 a year kids arrested for possession of marijuana. The next biggest number-wise offense are assaults. Okay, so those are the two biggies that really push the referral type up. You can see that the felonies have been somewhat flat, all along for about a little over 10 years. And then the chins, those are the truancies and the runaway, curfew violations and that sort of thing. So this slide shows that the felonies also hit a high point, and they have really come down in the last few years and flattening out, the last 2 years. But back in 2013, the murder rate, we only had 3 murders, which is very low. So in every category, it was kind of heading down in the murders. The number one offense for felonies is usually possession of controlled substance, small amount of cocaine, Xanax, heroin. I would say that's number one in the felony offense category. And then the violent felony referrals, you can tell there's kind of some spikes, but the numbers are fairly low, so if you just get a few more, it really makes it spike up. So those have also been trending down, which is good news. Now, I don't know how many of you remember what it was like here back in the early 90s, but San Antonio was known as the drive-by capital of the world, and we had, in 1993, 60 murders committed by kids under the age of 17. And so we were really in a big crisis with gang activity. And we were there for several years. And San Antonio kind of had a bad rap. There was lots of publicity regarding that rate. Violent crime amongst gangs was very, very high. A lot of these were gang hits, drive-by shootings. There were a lot of houses that were hit that were, in fact, the wrong house. A lot of innocent people suffered. But over the years, it's definitely been coming down. People have different anecdotes about what to attribute that to. Did all the gangbangers get locked up in prison? And that's why it dropped way off. Who's to say? But I think a lot of more intervention started being done earlier, especially in the school level. And the dangers of gangs and drugs were really kind of coming up to the forefront. I know that the Bexar County Sheriffs and the SAPD really got involved with trying to work on community-based policing, working with kids to find alternatives to the peer groups that they were seeking out. So on this slide, you can kind of see how the numbers break down, with the red being the highest number of arrests for juveniles in San Antonio. It's kind of small probably for you, those in the back. But you can really tell where the hot spots are. And so there's been a lot of work done in specific zip codes to try to work with schools and work within communities to try to get everybody back on track. Now this slide, Juvenile Probation Department is very proud of this slide. Now you have to look at it closely. But the blue line are the kids that after they've been on probation, the number that reoffend within 1 year. And so the recidivism rate 1 year out has come down over the last 4 years. And over 2 years, it's coming down. So, we'll be looking at the end of 2014 to kind of see where the upper limit is for the second year out offenders. But this is very promising. That's very a low recidivism rate overall. The people that commit crimes are the people that have gotten in trouble before. And so, you don't wake up one day when you're 25 and go out and rob a bank usually. And so this is a very promising statistic going forward for Bexar County. All right, so do y'all have any questions? We're kind of at a good natural breaking point before we go into talk about our kind of individual programming. Yes?
When you go on break, can you leave it on slide 33?
Yes.
Pretty short.
That one?
That one.
Okay. Yes.
You talked about having treatment beds at the juvenile facility, and I know that you have juveniles that are there pending what's happening next, and then there's an MRC. So what are those beds used for? What program is using those beds?
The MRC?
Not the MRC, but the extra treatment beds, or is it the MRC?
It is the MRC. So those 12 beds are full-time, 12 beds for girls. The weekend program has capacity for 12 girls and 12 boys. So that's 2 of the other 12 bed mods. And then there are, I think, 1 or 2 mods that are not currently being used. We do need more capacity, especially for the girls. We've had several that have had kind of a long wait. But the families really wanted to have them in treatment here in San Antonio, so we declined to send them out to a facility out of county, which we could have gotten a bed right away. But we also have treatment going on in detention. There's counselors in detention. There's drug abuse treatment going on while kids are waiting to go to court. So even before they're found guilty or adjudicated of a crime, they can receive treatment. And we just recently instituted, it's not included in this presentation, it's called the STEP program, and it's for kids who are maybe going to go to placement. And it's like a virtual placement in the detention center for 30 days where they have a lot of therapeutic interventions. It also involves the families, and so it really gives us an indication whether or not the families want to be involved, because that's one of our biggest struggles is how do you get the families to engage? And so, if the families won't engage, then probably the kid might be going to placement or state custody. If the family really engages during this 30-day kind of trial period, then that gives us a good indication that maybe the kid could be tried at home. So that's another program that has just started, really, I think it started back in June, so it's pretty new. But we found that it's been limiting our numbers that we've been sending to placement because they are getting that treatment, and if the family engages and the kid engages in a meaningful way, then we're able to avoid the placement possibility. Yes?
Can you say a little bit about the disproportionate number of Latino kids? Is it they get picked up more? They get picked up in other parts of town?
I don't know all the reasons why it is very disproportionate. I just think that in the zip codes that have a lot of the indicators and at-risk problems are in the area of towns where there are a lot of Hispanic students. But believe me, we get plenty of kids from high schools that would be perceived as North Side or that as well. Part of it has to do with school policing as well. Some districts have school police that have a big presence, and so they're right there to catch kids doing stuff. Other school districts don't have their own police force, and so you're relying strictly on SAPD or a municipal police department to come over to the campus. And so I think maybe the police are not called quite as often in those situations. There is a big move, and I was going to talk about it a little bit then, but maybe I'll talk about it now, to get truancy out of the criminal offense level and make it a civil offense. There's been a lot of talk about the school to prison pipeline and that kids racking up these truancy convictions, that really impacts them later on. I know that if I get a kid in court who now burglarized his neighbor's house, and then it turns out he has a long list of truancy offenses as well, that kind of counts against him. And so Lisa and I both served on the mayor's task force this last year to redirect the truancy operation of Bexar County. So all of the cases will be handled through the municipal court. There will be quality control on the cases. They will not accept cases that are not legally sufficient, and there will be a lot of intervention and prevention work done with the families prior to them ever being sent to the municipal court to face the actual charge of truancy. And so that's a new model that we're trying. There's a senator from Houston that's going to be working in the ledge this year to really try to get school-based offenses kind of off the plate of the juvenile courts in a meaningful way. So I know that's not a sufficient answer for you, but that is just kind of from my observation, anecdotal, is that a lot of the communities that have a lot of the problems that might lead to juvenile delinquency are in areas of town where a lot of Hispanic students are attending school.